Today, I want to talk to you about something that doesn't often have a conversation in the homeschool mom community. It's about how our role as homeschool mom evolves and shifts throughout our journey. When we first begin homeschooling, we're often everything to our kids. We're educator, we're curriculum developer, we're activity coordinator. We are all the things, and we are spending a lot of time with books, some of my favorite books. But as our kids grow and our homeschool evolves, our role naturally shifts. We learn to redefine who we are in this big homeschool story. And it's not just being the helpful person. We move beyond just being a helpful or helper role. It's important for us, for our well-being and for our kids' development, that we redefine who we become along this homeschool mom journey. So today, let's explore 5 strategies that have helped me redefine my role through different seasons of homeschooling, so you can too. Strategy number 1 is to list and prioritize your multiple hats. I wish I could use hats right now, but I'm Canadian, so all I'm going to find is a bunch of toques. As homeschool parents, we wear so many hats. It can make our heads spin. We are teachers and guidance counselors and lunch ladies and field trip coordinators and curriculum researchers, record keepers, minivan drivers, interpersonal counselors, and the list goes on. If we can take time to actually write down all the roles, all the hats that you currently wear in your homeschool life and beyond. Just don't rush this exercise. Be as specific as you can, but write them down to critically look at each of these roles. So once you've written your list, take a look and answer these questions. Which of these roles are really essential for your family's well-being and your child's education? Which of these roles are important, but perhaps can be done less frequently or with less intensity? Are there any roles that, while nice, are ultimately optional? Consider how each role aligns with your core family values and your child's current needs. I remember Oprah saying back in the 80s that you can do all the things you want to do in your life, you just can't do all of it today. So now that you've looked at the list of your roles or the hats you're wearing right now, look at all of them and ask yourself, are they the most important role in your current season? Which one aligns most closely with your values and your kids' needs right now? When my kids were young, my role as a hands-on learning facilitator was the most important thing. And as they've grown, my role gradually shifted to mentor, discussion guide, sometimes coach when they allow. My role as a learning facilitator has mostly disappeared. Not always, but mostly. By consciously prioritizing your most important hats, you give yourself permission to set down some roles that may no longer serve you or your family. This isn't a sign that you're failing, it's a sign that you're growing and evolving. It's what happens. Strategy number 2 to redefine your role is to identify areas where you can give greater autonomy or ownership of learning to your kids. I believe one of homeschooling's greatest gifts is raising independent, self-motivated learners. Yet many of us struggle to step back and allow our kids the autonomy they need to develop these qualities. Sometimes we would like self-motivated independent learners before they've had the requisite connection and attachment time or clarity how to actually do all these learning activities independently. But that's not what I'm speaking to today. What I'm speaking to today is that many of us struggle to step back and allow our kids autonomy to develop their self-motivation, their independent learning. How can you identify areas for more ownership of learning for your kids? Well, you can start by having them manage their daily assignment list. At a certain age of their homeschool, you could give them a basket of activities and give them cues as to what they need to do when they need to do it. You could give them day timers or planners. I know that I always offer to purchase them planners well before their middle school years. You can find them easily for $1, $2 at Walmart or somewhere, a discounted dollar store. Colored markers. Some kids eat that stuff up. Other kids, not so much. But offering them the opportunity to organize their own time and get clear on how much time they have, and actually doing their checklist, their daily activities independently, whether they do it perfectly or not, it actually teaches them to take ownership of their activities in their day. If you want them to be independent learners, you can also teach them how to research topics online and then have them present what they've learned. We did this through routine presentations. You can show them how to schedule their work and then let them decide when to do each task. Certainly for myself in college, I learned to put the project that I needed completed by a certain day, the submission date, into my day timer and do it in red, and then work backwards to assign certain days as research days, certain days as writing days, and all the different elements that are required for that particular project, but to work backwards in the day timer so you can be really clear on what needs to be done. And of course, I showed my kids how to do that too. Some of them wanted to learn, some of them did not. I know from my experience, I still write certain appointments in red, the ones that are non-negotiable, and then other ones in various other colors, just to clarify what's most important in my day. There were even times that we provided them a rubric or an assessment so they could evaluate their own progress. I have to say that I was cautious about doing assessments or testing or all these things, as I really don't believe that learning and motivation can be measured. Sure, skill building can. Sure, answering the right question or identifying when you use a formula in a certain space can, but I don't really see the relevance to testing as much as self-motivation and actually sitting down to work on something progressively. If kids excel in a particular subject, you can also allow them to teach their younger siblings. Just last week, a homeschool mom shared with me that she allowed the oldest kiddo to share all her knowledge with her younger siblings, school style, to share with them all the things that she knows about a particular topic. She ate it up. Sometimes this approach works. Even into the high school years, this approach can work. I've photographed when my older child is teaching my younger child a math concept or chemistry concept or so many possibilities. They enjoy teaching when they have mastery or have some awareness about something that maybe their sibling doesn't. And that learning by teaching reinforces the learning for the older child too. Sometimes we can't assume that kids are ready to do independent learning in certain topics or at certain ages because they're just not ready. Sometimes we need to be with them. But I also vacillated between that and also spoon feeding every lesson and every activity. Certainly started that way. But I also continued with that approach occasionally throughout the first probably 8 homeschool years. Certainly by late middle school, each of the kids were able to take ownership of their key learning activities because they'd been given plenty of guidance and also plenty of freedom. Freedom to make mistakes, freedom to not do every single math question, freedom to determine how much they wanted to invest in various academic subjects, and freedom to deep dive into the ones they loved. And what I saw with my kids' motivation, their increased motivation was directly proportional to their ownership over their learning. Of course, your goal isn't to become unnecessary as a homeschool mom. It's just to gradually shift from being the director of every activity, your child's education, to becoming their mentor and their guide. This transition honors their growing abilities and prepares them for adulthood. Oh, and it gets you ready to adjust to your new role in their adult lives too. Strategy 3 to help you redefine your role is to get personal time. Develop yourself beyond your homeschool mom role. Spend time with yourself without the kids. I was so pleased to hear from one homeschool mom. She sent me photos of her present getaway without the kids, without her husband, all on her own, by herself, pursuing her own interests for a couple of days. Amazing. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of redefining our role is remembering who we are beyond homeschool parent. Many of us, most of us, pour so much into our kids' development that we neglect our own growth. Intentionally scheduling time for personal development that's completely separate from your homeschool mom role is key. Take a class in something you've always wanted to learn. Join a book club that's not focused on education or parenting. But if you want to join a book club that's about education or parenting, you can always come hang out with us in the Homeschool Mama Book Club. It's over on Patreon. Develop a skill or a hobby that has nothing to do with the homeschool kids. I tried a drawing class. I thought it would be a quiet, relaxing time away every Wednesday evening at the local college. It wasn't. It actually was like math. It was challenging. Perspective. What perspective? Shading. All these things were challenging, but I did discover that just like math, drawing can be learned. Connect with friends who don't homeschool. You can be supported by friends who just love your family. I did. At least twice a month, I'd go out for coffee with one friend, and we shared so much of our life alongside one another. I learned so many things from her. Pursue professional development or volunteer work in your areas of interest. Now, I know this one isn't for everyone, and not everyone can imagine that one day they might want to do something else. But perhaps you have a marketable skill and you don't even know it. I know that my 2 decades of writing alongside my kids as they grew up turned into coaching, podcasting, writing coaching courses, and so many more things. And I never would have guessed it. I found that blocking out 2 hours every Wednesday for creative writing helped me feel like I had a separate sense of self outside of my kids. And it actually kept me more engaged, more energetic as a homeschool parent for the rest of the week. This is not a selfish thing. It's not a self-centered thing. It's modeling for your kids what healthy, whole person living really looks like. Also, it's not a requirement that you do it either. You do you, girlfriend. But certainly, it prepares you for the season when your active homeschool years come to a close. And strategy number 4 is to practice self-reflection. Regular self-reflection is, I think it's essential, especially as a mom, but definitely as a homeschool mom. Without intentional reflection, we often cling to outdated versions of ourselves, of our role, out of habit or fear. So set aside time quarterly to reflect on questions like, how has my role changed in the past few months? Which aspects of my current role are energizing me and which are depleting me? What do my kids genuinely need from me in this season? What am I holding on to that no longer serves our family? How am I preparing for the next transition in our journey? I found journaling through these questions helps me track my growth and identify areas where I'm resisting necessary change. Looking back at my earlier reflections also reminds me how far I've come. So we've talked about the importance of prioritizing your roles and fostering your child's autonomy, but remember, you deserve to nurture yourself too. To help you on this journey, I've got strategy number 5. I've created the Rediscover Yourself Beyond Homeschool Mom guidebook. This is a 14-page digital guide. It's packed with practical exercises and journaling prompts to help you reconnect with your creativity, to build healthy boundaries, rediscover your passions. It's designed to help you feel more like you again, leading to less stress, more joy, and ultimately a happier homeschool family, a more energized homeschool mom. If you're ready to find more of that and reclaim your me time, then click the link below to get your copy. Because every homeschool mom deserves to have a seat at the homeschool table too. It is a wild experience to be at the end of your home educating journey. It was a season of grieving for me. I didn't want it to end. I talked a lot about it publicly, but also I didn't want more babies and I didn't want to homeschool the neighbors' kids. So guess I'll have to wait for the grandkids. The whole thing is so dang saturating. You assume it'll never come to an end, and then it does. Redefining your role throughout your homeschool mom journey is evidence that your family is growing, learning, evolving exactly as you hoped they would. They grew up right before your eyes. Side note, I remember a season when every time my son would come down the stairs, I would declare, "You grew." And he'd respond back, "No, Mom, I couldn't grow every single day." Yet somewhere between 13 and 16, he was a solid 1.5 feet taller than me, taller than his 6'2" dad. They do indeed grow up right before your eyes. When we practice embracing these changes, we enable ourselves to stay purposeful and present for every season. From those tentative first steps into homeschooling when, as I remember, my son was military crawling across the kitchen floor, to the bittersweet moments when he'll graduate next year and launch from our home into his independent adult life. It'll happen to you. It happens to all of us. I'd love to hear in the comments how your role has changed or how you're navigating a current transition. Don't forget to download my free Living Your Life on Purpose checklist for more guidance and encouragement to live an intentional homeschool mom life through every stage. Until next time, I hope you and your homeschool kids can turn your homeschool challenges into your homeschool charms. You've got this, girlfriend.